For this novel project, I read the book Call of the Wild by Jack London. Call of the Wild follows a dog named Buck on his journey. Buck has a comfortable life in California, but it's interrupted when he's taken and put to work in the Yukon. Buck is now pulling sleds for the Klondike Gold Rush and has to attempt to adapt to this brutal life. As he learns the new ways the wild calls to him, Buck has to make a decision. Will he turn to the wild completely, or will he fight the wild? I think the theme of this story is that instincts can be very powerful. Buck is a completely domesticated dog, but he's still able to feel the instincts of his ancestors. Buck even fought the instincts, but the instincts ended up winning. He was also very laid back and civilized and not wild at all, but he was turned wild because of his instincts from his ancestors. So the protagonist is Buck, and Buck is a half Saint Bernard, half sheepdog. He starts out with a pampered life in California, but is taken to work in Yukon territory. He goes from a warm, comfortable life to a cold and hard life. He struggles at first with this new life, but he soon learns the ways and starts to get stronger. The story follows Buck, so we know the most about him, and we know his past, unlike other characters. Buck is definitely a dynamic character. He completely changes throughout the story and goes from a laid-back family dog to a completely wild dog. I think the antagonist could be Spitz, or even though it's not a character, it could be the wild. So Spitz is Buck's rival, and he does whatever he can to stay alive without considering other dogs or humans. He fights dogs often and is really just a very cruel member of the team in general. The wild is very hard on Buck when he's pulling sleds, and he also struggles with the call of the wild. He has instincts to return to the wild, which causes problems for him throughout the story, and it really drives the story as well. The wild can also seem to be Buck's enemy at times. Part of the exposition of the story is when Buck starts out in California with his original owners. He starts out with a very comfortable life, and we can really start to get a familiar feeling with him and really just get to know the character. Then he starts to learn the ways of the Yukon when he is taken to work there, and then learns to fight other dogs. He still struggles with masters throughout the story, especially Hal, Charles, and Mercedes. The climax of the story is when John Thornton saves Buck from Hal and all his cruel ways. After the climax, Buck and Thornton's relationship begins to grow. They start to form a really natural human and dog relationship. The resolution of the story is after Buck gets revenge on the Yeehats for Thornton's death, he's masterless and is able to completely return to the wild. Call of the Wild is a very adventurous story that really captures the attention of the readers. It's very intriguing, and Buck is a very complex character that's fun to read about and see how he develops throughout the story. As you read, you can really see how different each character is. Each of Buck's masters is very different, and it's cool to see how he reacts to each master. The author does a really good job of showing what Buck went through, and as a reader, you're really able to feel for him and feel what he's been going through. Call of the Wild is a book that really can't be put down for an adventurous soul, and I really enjoyed the book and definitely recommend it for anyone who really likes adventurous stories that are packed with action.